Ready? Play.
Hi Dominic. First of all, can you give us a quick update on the coaching situation, where we're at with that right now?
Yeah, I'm here with Carlis. You know, I was traveling with him like 10, 11 years ago. I won my first challenger with him actually, and he's with me since 4 or 5 weeks. So I know him well. I'm practicing at home with my father, like since after Australia, and yeah, Carlis is gonna travel with me the most weeks, I guess, and yeah, that's the situation right now.
Just one more. What is the biggest difference between Dominic Thiem 2019-2020 and Dominic Thiem 2024?
It's a different galaxy, actually. No, but it's I guess a bit of everything, you know. Like I had a little bit more power back then. Obviously, a lot more confidence. Probably I was playing the game better, just a bit. I was way more in the. I had a way more fluent game as well. So yeah, there are a lot of differences, but I stopped comparing myself to back then because there's no point, and yeah, I try to do the best out of my situation right now.
So you pulled out of Naples last week to heal up the wrist. So 2 hours today. Are you pain-free? Are you ready to keep going for the rest of the week?
Yeah, I'm pain-free. I was putting down a bit the intensity in the last weeks of practice, so that I'm ready for here, which is good. And obviously it's a little bit day-by-day thing, you know. But I'm having my physio here. He's great. He's working a lot every day, so that it keeps calm. And I have a day off tomorrow as well. No match tomorrow. That helps. So I should be ready for Wednesday.
You've talked very openly about this season being very important for you to know what to do next. Do you feel that Estoril can be a turning point for you?
I guess every week can be a turning point, but no, as I said before, I'm in a situation right now where I really have to do the best out of it. There's no point to compare myself to my 2019 or 2020 self. It's just useless. So yeah, I'm trying to do the best out of it. Today was great. It's a great victory, and I try to do similar on Wednesday.
Dominic, I guess you know Jean-Sauce is going to retirement after this tournament. You guys had a lot of battles over the years. What can you tell us about Thiem? What can you tell us about the battles that you guys had in the past?
Yeah, I have a special relationship. First on the court, I played my first Grand Slam match ever against Joao, and then also my second ATP title I won against him. But then from like when the time was going on, we became great friends outside the court. He was inviting me for one great dinner here in Lisbon. I still have to do a revenge in Vienna. I would love to do this. I hope he has more time now after this tournament. But no, it's unbelievable what he did for Portuguese tennis. I think he really brought this sport to another level in the country, and he's a great guy, and I'm sure he'll have a great, very long life outside tennis.
And are you happy for playing here in this last tournament of John?
Yeah, of course, it's nice. I think he's playing tomorrow night. Maybe I'll come watch. Would be nice for sure. It's a great atmosphere. Many people will make a great atmosphere for him. So yeah, maybe I'll come by and watch a bit.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.
Ready? Play.
I have to tell you, very important, very sad, but also very beautiful message. The season 2024 is gonna be my last one. I'm gonna finish my career with the end of this season. There are some reasons behind it. Firstly, of course, my wrist. It's not exactly the way it should be, and it's not exactly the way how I want it. And the second reason is my inner feeling. I was thinking about this decision for a very long time. I was thinking very carefully about it. Of course, I was also thinking about the whole journey as a tennis player, which was incredible. I've had success, I've won trophies, I've really never dreamt of. So the journey was incredible, all the ups and downs. It was a incredible experience, which I'm so thankful for. But yeah, at the end, I came to the conclusion that this decision to end my career by the end of the season is the only right one. I'm very happy with it, and I am also super excited for everything what's coming next, and for a lot of more information, and also all the talks with my family and all the talks about my career and my past. Let's check out the vlog, which is coming on tomorrow.
I want one more thing from you, Francisca. Can you look at the camera? And I want you to say, I am Francisco Jorge, and
Ready? Play.
oh, can you hear me, Andre?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. I'm just going to plug my microphone in, and as soon as I see Rachel, I can see her backstage. If you want to give me a thumbs up, Rachel, and I'll bring you forward. Yep, that's the thumbs up from Rachel. Rachel's making her debut, by the way, Andre. So we can welcome Rachel.
Nice.
How are you, Rachel, by the way?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. Are we, Andre, I'll start with you, and then I'll come to you, Rachel, with the same question. Are we happy or sad, or what's the thoughts on Dominic's, obviously, potentially last match, but more importantly, his retirement in general?
In a sense, it's like kind of a relief because a decision was made in his career. He wasn't feeling good. Like we had like 3 seasons. I was just actually checking his stats, and after his U.S. Open final, which he won against Zverev back in 2020, he only made 2 more finals. One in 2020, the ATP finals, and another one like last year in Austria again. So it has been a long time coming. He couldn't find his level. He injured his wrist, and then he was never again the same player. So it's good to see some closure in his career. It's not the ending that we would like to have seen. I wish I could have seen a fully recovered Dominic Thiem, back to his full potential and the things that we know he on his healthy body he was capable of doing. But at the very least, like now, I think we're just kind of out of that limbo zone where like, is he ever going to go back? Is he going to keep just being like this, a little like shell of himself, like, or what's going to happen? And then he comes up with his career. It's closure. I think it's a good moment for him to look forward to something else different in his life. Realize that this is the end. Like all good things, I guess, come to an end. And he's now 31. It's kind of like not the big three kind of pushed the agenda a lot, like on the super like into the late 30s, playing extremely good tennis. But now that he's just 31, I think it's not a bad timing to like retire. Honestly, like it's unfortunate, like, but it is what it is. And yeah, I guess I'd say like the final feeling is just of a relief of this closure that he's got in his career.
Yeah, definitely. Rachel, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. I mean, I don't think it's, it's not positive when any player retires, regardless of if they've won 20 million Grand Slams or just the one like Thiem has. But I think his time has come to an end, and I think it's good that he's recognised that and has taken the decision instead of pushing his body to the limits and making his wrist worse and potentially causing other injuries. So, and it's also great that his last possible tournament is in Austria.
Yeah, definitely. Rachel, you play a bit of tennis. Have you ever had, I mean, wrist in particular, have you ever had any wrist issues, or what's your sort of biggest injury that you've probably picked up during your tennis time?
Elbow, definitely elbow. It's
Okay.
especially, I mean, I wouldn't say I've got a big serve, but it's decent. That extension.
You can say big, it's all right.
That the extension over the head, constantly, it causes a bit of wear and tear to the elbow. So
yeah, we're watching Thiem serve here. I mean, so he's obviously lost the first game, but he's trying to hold.
We lost him. Are you back? Or maybe not. Yeah, so as you were saying, Dominic Thiem just finally held serve. My stream on Tennis TV is 1 point late compared to the one on the screen that we have right now, but off to a good start. Could have gotten into some bit of trouble, was up 30 love, came back to like 30 all, but managed to hold in the end. I do think his service is still pretty solid. Like, if he can get a few first serves in, I think he's honestly get a chance of making things competitive.
yeah, I'd agree. Obviously, the two aces to the one double fault. I'd say it's a good statistic. You would obviously rather have more aces than double faults, and not vice versa. Mm-hmm. He's got a high first serve percentage, and he has done throughout his career. I feel he's a very consistent server.
Yeah. See right there, I put in 83% for serves in. Of course, like, sample size is very small, just one game.
Yeah.
Andre, can you hear me all right, by the way, now? Am I back?
I can hear you. I do think that you might be cutting in and out a little.
Yeah, I'm just going to close a few windows, basically, and hopefully things will get better. What's the big difference for you, Andre, do you think, in the sort of pre-2021 Dominic Thiem and the Dominic Thiem we've seen the last 3 years?
I'd say forehand effectiveness is nowhere near where it should be. It's just he hits the backhand like pretty well, but like the forehand is produces a lot of enforced errors. Just isn't able to push players that the way he used to. Maybe it's just not as heavy a shot as he used to be. He's not able to generate that pace that he was able to, like, from anywhere in the court. And I think with that comes a bit of a lack of confidence that his whole game kind of suffers from it. Maybe he tries to go a little bit too big on the backhand, or sometimes he just tries the opposite and starts becoming too passive on that shot as well, just that he has like more time to maybe prepare or not just lose with another forced error. But yeah, it's just he's a far less aggressive player than he used to be. Like in terms of, not because he's not trying. I think he's trying at times to like really hit that one, but it's just not going. It's just not going his way. It's just not bothering other players.
I'm going to share one or two team thoughts and memories, and then I'll come to you both on maybe some sort of good news, Dominic team thoughts at least. I mean, first of all, I would say the Dominic team between 2018 probably and 2020, and those ATP finals is probably the line in the sand that we would draw in 2020. You know, that Dominic team, I looked at its head-to-head with Novak, Roger, and Rafa. Obviously, this is a career head-to-head rather than that 3-year period, but it's a 7-5, 7 for Novak, 5 for Dominic head-to-head. So very, very close, just depending on what day and who turned up. Rafa is 10-6, but there was a lot of those who were on clay. And still, nevertheless, winning 6 matches against Rafa over that period is still very impressive. And then against Roger, it's actually, I think, 5-2 in Dominic's favor. So, you know, we talk about Andy Murray in that 2, 3, 4-year period of being able to live with the big three. With the exception of obviously Sinner and Alcaraz, who are on the scene right now, Dominic Thiem is probably the only one, really. I know you might look at Medvedev, but his head-to-head with Rafa is not great. The more times he plays Novak now, it seems to get worse for Daniel. So for me, Dominic Thiem is probably the next one at the bus stop, so to speak, to say, look, I could live with these guys. No one else could, apart from me and Andy in 2 different periods. And live with them he did. I mean, the matches he had with Rafa on hard court, actually, at the Slams in New York and in Australia of 2020. I mean, that performance he had against Rafa in Australia was maybe the best of his career. And Dominic Thiem also against Rafa at the ATP finals the same year. Incredible 7-7, 7-6, 7-6 win. And yeah, was so exciting to watch. The US Open win, of course, will be the sort of, you know, the statistical thing that people remember him for most. Sadly, of course, there was no crowd to see that unfold, but I'm glad he got his 1 Grand Slam over the line at the very least. And yeah, what do you think, Andre?
About what specifically, I'd say?
Just some sort of positive, you know, amazing memories you have of Dominic. And by the way, he might go on to win this match yet, so I don't want to put the kibosh on him just yet. He might win, and we might have more matches, and we will dip in and out of the match for sure when we see various things take place.
Yeah, I think that he just hit that one. My favorite memory of him is kind of keeps on going in a sense, like just that one backhand down the line.
Backhand,
yeah, it's just it's one of my favorite shots to see, like in general. I just like the technique of it. Like it's just so compact, just so flat and solid. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just one of the most amazing shots that tennis has ever seen. Another one. But yeah, I think I would say my favorite memory, like in terms of like his career, it has to be unfortunately the tournament that he lost, but like the Australian Open 2020, Australian Open, but ATP Finals 2020 when he played Djokovic and Rafa in the same tournament, didn't he? And he won both times. So it was fantastic. Like it's probably one of the highest level I've ever seen a player just go for it. It's just bashing the ball like so hard, just, you know, pushing Djokovic and Nadal's defenses to the absolute limit and just breaking them. I think it was just amazing. Like I think that was one of the highest level matches I've ever seen, I'd say, like in terms of like the consistency of aggression from one player.
Absolutely, yeah. Taking time away from the opponent is something Dominic could do, especially when he hits a backhand on the rise like he did just then. What about you, Rachel?
Obviously, I know Dominic as a very aggressive baseline player, which I think stands out. You know, you've got your all rounders like Nadal's he can do everything. Thiem is good at the net, but you know, especially that backhand on the rise, like you were just saying, no one's getting that back. They're incredible shots. And I was just thinking about his meetings with Alexander Zverev. They've met 12 times. And they both stand out to me as really strong baseline players. So I mean, all of their meetings are incredible to watch.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing I want to say is Dominic Thiem, the person. I've come across him a few times in mixed zones. I've never interviewed him like one-to-one, but I come across him in mixed zones and probably press conferences. But certainly my memories are pretty strong from Estoril, the 2 years that he played there, the last 2 years. And maybe even more so in 2023 when he had a loss. And yet he still came out to speak to the media, which is something he doesn't have to do. But he was the only player I can recall during that spell who lost a match and still came to speak to the media. And just I know people say this a lot about players on tour, but listen, off camera, I'll tell you both 1 or 2 players on tour that, let's say, they're not so easy to get along with. And I'll more than happily do that. Maybe in the chat you can speculate on who they might be, but I'm not gonna reveal who they are. But yeah, I never had that kind of experience with Dominic. It was always very positive, whether he'd won or lost a match. I wasn't scared to talk to him either after a loss, which obviously can be the case with a lot of players, and understandably so. You know, they're not happy buddies when they've lost a match. I can see Dominic Thiem, by the way, putting a bit of pressure here on the Darderi serve, Andre. Maybe we'll be here in 5 days from now and he's playing the final. Who knows? His draw, if he does win today, and maybe, by the way, Darderi, you know, that's not a bad first round, bearing in mind Thiem could have pretty much played anyone in the draw. And his next round, I think, if he does win, would be Draper or someone. I'm going to find out. Draper or Nishikori, which will be fun. He's got to win today. And at the moment, at the moment, he's a long way from that. But yeah,
I like what I'm seeing from him. Like, he's kind of compensating from the forehand. It's just not the same. It's just kind of moonballing it in a way, just kind of heavy spin. Try to keep it deep, like, and high. Not really trying to tackle it. It's just more like of a setup to this point, instead of just kind of having it sit up for the attack. Just really trying to push it. So yeah, it's an interesting that he's kind of adapting his tactics to like his stage of his career.
Yeah, a few moonballs in there. Although one of those moonballs did go long, and now it's back on at deuce. Actually, Claudio Bordelli is probably not one of those that I'm scared to talk to, despite our a funny little interaction. Are you aware of this, Andre? This little Clara? Yeah, I just revealed her draw at the French Open, and
oh, I remember this. Yeah, I've seen this. Yeah.
Anyway, she did take it, though it looks quite bad on the video. She did actually take it pretty well. So we are back at deuce after a good serve there down the tee from Darderi. Are you someone who's excited by this part of the season, Rachel, or do you sort of have post Grand Slam blues? Because we have such an intense, thrilling ride from the French Open, or even really throughout the clay court season, but the French Open to New York in particular. And then there are some even ardent tennis fans that go, you know what? European indoor season, maybe Asian swing as well, is because we don't get much of a chance to take a break when it comes to watching tennis. But I don't know if you're someone who does sort of switch off from the professional scene during this period.
I think it's difficult because obviously everyone loves the excitement of a Grand Slam. And after the US Open, I feel like it kind of just falls off a little bit, like the whole atmosphere of live tennis. Saying that, I think the period between the US Open and the Australian Open, there's so much tension built because everybody wants a Grand Slam again. So those, like the Asian tournaments and the European indoor tournaments, I think they play a big part in that tension.
Time zone as well is huge. And for Andre, this must be, the Asian swing just must be like impossible, right, Andre?
Yeah, I guess as I grow, as I'm getting older and I have to work in the morning, it just becomes like even
Andre's in
increasingly
Canada, by the
more.
way, for both Rachel
Yes,
and everyone else.
yes, I am in New York time, though I'm not in New York. I'm in
Yeah.
Canada. So, um, yeah, like I used to watch more of Shanghai, but after that, like I feel like now I'm just kind of less interested in the Asian swing, even though like I would watch it if it was in a better time zone for me.
Yeah.
But I tend to get more excited more towards the end. Like I think that indoor season is it's pretty cool to see. Like it's a different kind of atmosphere. I like the ATP finals more and more. For the longest time in the season, I kind of feel like it's a bit of like a just huge exhibition. But as it gets closer to it, like I see more of the appeal of it. And of course, I have come to enjoy a lot more of the Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup. So that's a part that I get
Yeah.
excited for at the end of the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah, I think these sort of 4 tournaments, including the team events, I think there's a nice listen, tennis rarely has a perfectly aligned synergy to it, but I do think it's quite nice. We've got these 2 ATP 500s not far away from each other, so it does make it easy for a lot of players to get to, in terms of if they're here and then they go to Paris, for example, either from Basel or Vienna, it's not too bad. And then obviously from there to Turin, and then Davis Cup and Billie Jean King Cup as well, in Malaga and Saudi Arabia, I think. Where's Billie Jean? No, Malaga as well. Both are in Malaga, of course they are.
Yep.
So that's a nice, easy, and it's also quite easy to keep up with. I do think Basel and Vienna could at least talk to each other a little bit about the timing of the final. They sometimes have it on at very, very similar times, and I think they could easily avoid that. If one had a preference for 2 o'clock over 4 o'clock, for example, then just alternate it. Just be adults. Do what's good for you. If let's just say Basel wants 2 o'clock and so does Vienna or whatever, then just go, you know what? You have 2 o'clock this year. We'll have 2 o'clock next year if you like, and just do that, because it's better for everyone. Even the tournaments themselves, even if they sacrifice their preferable time, they'll get more people tuning into the final, and they'll get possibly more people in attendance, because if they're a tennis nut and they want to watch both matches, they just can't obviously attend. So, but apart from that, there is a nice, then you got Paris-Bercy. I do think it's interesting, though, that they are changing the venue for Paris-Bercy next year. I do think.
Are they?
Yeah, it's changing to it. So it's going to be still Paris indoors, but in a different location. Yeah, I only found that out last week. By the way, Dominic Thiem has broken with that signature shot, Andre.
Yeah. I think he hit like 3 or 4 in this game.
Yeah.
Like he was inspired. He actually brought this break point with a forehand winner, which has been a bit of a rarity these days. So it seems to be excited about this match, which is great to see.
Yeah, and there is a danger, Rachel, like that he could just come into this as a sort of, okay, this is nice, I can just enjoy it. But actually, he wants to win this match, right?
Absolutely. I mean, why wouldn't he? He's in Austria. There's no pressure on him. He's like 300 something ATP. He's had his successes. I feel like he's just going in with the correct mindset, but still obviously wants to win, which is fair enough.
You say he's 300 in the world. That's despite a glitch on the website. I don't know if you're aware of this, Andre, but they suddenly randomly awarded on the ATP website Dominic Thiem 500 points. I think it was yesterday or the day before, and suddenly he was in the top 100 again. And
wow.
And yeah, it was a glitch basically. I think there was some kind of exhibition thing that happened on Sunday in Vienna, sort of to give him a farewell, and I think he might have beaten Alexander Zverev in some kind of special tiebreak, like 10-8 or something, and then maybe they just gave him 500 points for that and just went, all right, Dommy, you can have another week in the sun. And but a few people were tweeting about it, and I know Miles was one of the people that was tweeting about that, among others. And it caused a great amount of amusement. But if you're a Dominic Thiem fan and you're religiously sticking to that website and you thought, oh, okay, my man's back in the top 100, maybe he's not going to retire after all. Even a team win at this title, by the way, is not going to change his mind, I'm sure. And in fact, it might just be a perfect ending. But to be honest with you, right now, A bit like Rafa in Madrid this year, in particular, and Barcelona to some extent. It's just like just get some wins. So you've got those sort of final things. You know, Rafa fans will certainly, especially those in attendance in Madrid, will still remember the De Minaur win in particular, but also perhaps the one over Cash-In too. So yeah. But anyway, 3-2, 15 love. Oh, my stream, by the way, is almost certainly going to be behind yours, Andre. I don't know where you're at, Rachel, with the score.
I am at. I think I'm the same as you.
I'm at 30 love now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, Dami just won the point to go up 40 love.
Yeah. Thiem against Kyrgios actually is that was that the 5-setter in Australia in 2021? I think that's what he's talking about. The Miles. I just remember that was also in that period of not quite knowing where Thiem was at. It was actually the beginning of the spell of not quite knowing where he was at. I think there was a motivation issue as well for Dominic post US Open. I think he might have spoken about that too. But then the wrist injury and then the confidence on the forehand in particular, as you just highlighted, Andre, was pretty significant. Lost to Schwartzman in 5 sets, I think, at the French Open. But that French Open, US Open, we talk about the slams coming thick and fast. You know, Rafa basically said he wouldn't go to New York, I think, to sort of hone in his chances at Roland Garros that year. But doing those 2 tournaments back to back, pretty much, well, I don't think anybody went super deep in both, at least on the men's side. Because I remember Thiem won in New York, but went out, I'm going to say 4th round in Paris that year. Rafa skipped and then played the French. Novak Djokovic, for those wondering what happened to him that year, that was the year when he had a little altercation. I don't know what the right word is, but the ball against the line judge moment. So he went out early as well to Pablo Carreño Busta. And of course, that will go down as a PCB win.
Yeah.
And they played again, I think, at the French a few weeks later. And that was maybe 4 sets, I think, that Novak won that one. Yeah, AO 2021 Miles, yeah. I remember it was a 5-setter. I'm going to say it was on it wasn't on the main court. It was on one of the other show courts.
I like to see Thiem using every opportunity to fire the backhand down the line now. It's just it's just kind of his getaway shot. Like,
yeah, and did so to great effect there. Darderi couldn't pick it up. Darderi, by the way, he's so again somebody I've come across a little bit on the tour. He's quite a feisty chap. Not this is not a criticism. This is just you know, I was watching him in practice, and yeah, he was hitting that ball as hard as he possibly could. Maybe testing the patience of 1 or 2 members of his team at times. But yeah, it was certainly fun to watch him in practice that day. I was literally leaning against there was just no one else there. There was just me. I think there was his fitness guy who was sipping on a mate, if you know what a mate is, Andre or Rachel, yeah. that tea that they drink in Latin America quite a lot. And then there was his coach as well. And there was me. And I was leaning up against one of the posts. I'm pretty sure that the net was set up for doubles. And I very nearly got hit by one of those said balls from Darderi. Not that I'm not holding that against him. That's not the reason I'm calling him feisty. I was very dumb to be leaning against the post, thinking I was cool as a cucumber, bearing in mind there was a top 50 player hitting the ball as hard as he could nearby. Wasn't the wisest thing I've ever done. Oh, that's a lovely touch from Darderi to the net.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, have you ever had the pleasure of watching a professional practice up close?
Yeah, my first ever Wimbledon, I think it was 2019. Mm-hmm. It was women's semi-finals day, and I think it was one of the like small outdoor courts. Simona Halep was warming up, mm-hmm. So I watched her.
Impressive?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to say yes, really. Although if you said no, Rachel, I think that would be a nice headline. Rachel says Simona Halep in semi-final practice at Wimbledon wasn't impressive. That would be amusing. Hey, Zach, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on again, John.
Oh, no worries at all. We've been reminiscing a bit about Dominic Thiem. I don't know if you've got any memories of Dominic you'd like to share.
You know, I think the memory for me actually of Thiem is going to be these last couple of years where he was really battling against his body, and he, of course, he had a remarkable career. Of course, it's a tragedy that his body really betrayed him. But I just have so much respect for a guy that just kept getting out there, just kept playing through it, that just kept grinding.
As well.
He played challengers. He grind. Yeah. He didn't have to do that. He's had plenty of money for forever. He was out there because he wanted to be out there and because he loved the game. And, you know, as somebody who's a mid-tier rec league player, it's just awesome to see somebody continue to get out there, continue to do it the way that he did. And I like watching guys kind of, I don't want to see somebody go out with a major win. You know, respect to Sampras who did that. I like the guys that want to grind. It's good for the challengers. It's good for the fans, can see them. And, you know, there was always that hope that he'd reclaim the Magic just 1 or 2 times. And you know what? There were a couple matches that he did, and it made it all worth it. And so I'm going to miss him. What a career he's had. So much more could have happened if he just stayed healthy. You know, certainly not his fault. But when I think of Thiem, I'm going to think of a grinder who loved tennis.
Yeah, nice. Regarding the Sampras thing, though, that is a sort of a thing that's aged a little bit because he wasn't necessarily planning to. It wasn't like, this is my last US Open, and he went out with a bang. He won the tournament. It just happened to be his last ever match, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, when Djokovic won the Olympics, there's a part of me is like, oh, is he gonna do a Sampras here? And it almost would have made sense for him, but you know, he couldn't give it up.
There was talk on the day of the French Open final of 2022 that Rafa was going to do the same at the French Open that year. And looking back, maybe some which he had done, but you just can't. No, this term about going out on your own terms, it just doesn't happen really because nobody really can do that. Right. You know, unless you can predict the future, which no one can, because then you've got the other way around is some people regret it and then they come back a couple of years later and then arguably damage their legacy or arguably enhance it sometimes, or arguably have regrets about finishing too early in all sports, by the way, Zach.
Look at Borg, right? Look at if we're going to go to their sport, look at Michael Jordan. By the way, Andre, Rachel, great to meet y'all. Excited to be on with y'all.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you.
I'm curious, you know, kind of same question. Like, what do we think? Like, do we like it when athletes go out on their own terms? Are they leaving something on the table when they do what Sampras did or what Michael Jordan did?
I guess for the fans, yes, but like I can't stop thinking about Ash Barty. It was just basically the definition of going out on her own terms.
Yeah.
For all of the fans, which is a huge shock because it's like, well, you're on top of the world, like almost literally. Almost nobody can get that close to you in terms of like how much talented you are, and she just go like, nope, I don't want to do this anymore. I did what I wanted to do and I'm out. And it's just like, well, I guess we can't really argue with that. Like, I mean, she gave what she wanted to give to the sport and that's it. I mean, if she decides for a long time, like people are just like, was she gonna regret it? Like with this, she's like, I'm happily retired and I'm happily home. I don't want to grind. I don't want to travel. I liked what I did and that was enough for me. And I think that's just kind of a different respect for it. Like, I mean, it's an interesting story. I like to hear stories like Dominic, as you're saying, like he was grinding, but at the same time, I think understanding that each individual is different, and if that's what they want to do, I guess who are we to push them forward?
By the way, punishing a Dominic Thiem serve volley. The volley wasn't that bad from Dominic, but wasn't good enough in the end, and Darderi punished it, so he's got some break points. Yeah. Rachel, is there anyone in all of sport who sticks out for you? I mean, Ash Barty is somebody who I was thinking about during those comments, but maybe there's someone else elsewhere outside of tennis who you think of as like, oh, maybe they did call it a day too early.
I'm not sure outside of tennis. Another name that's been going around lately is Danielle Collins.
Yeah. You know she's changed her mind, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. I think she announced her retirement and then won the Miami Open.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And I had a great run, and then obviously the season came to an end. Well, her season came to an end, and now she's suddenly changed her mind and wants to get back at it. So
I think it was always possible, which is why I was kind of on the side of the media who asked her, not incessantly, but there was 1 or 2 questions in the build-up to the French Open, like, what could make you change your mind? And she was like, basically nothing. Okay, fine, you move on. But then, you know, I think I know I actually interviewed her on a 1-to-1 a couple of years ago, or a year ago. Oh, Dominic Thiem sprays that forehand long, and we're back on serve. I spoke to her face to face in Seville last year at Billie Jean King Cup, and she was very keen to tell me how much she loved playing in Australia. You know, US Open is obviously a big tournament for her coming from the US, but she just loved the whole Australian thing. I think she may have had a partner in Australia at the time, but she certainly had lots of friends there, and had most of her biggest ever Grand Slam run was, of course, in Australia. So maybe that also influenced her decision to at least prolong her career by another 6 months. But yeah, the more success she was having on the court, the more likely that, or the more probable the question would be, at least. You know, she's more than welcome to change her mind and more than welcome to dismiss the notion of returning to the sport. But equally, you know, if Rafa, you know, was winning matches and winning tournaments and getting to finals, you know, people would naturally say, Rafa, what is this going to help you change your mind?
Yeah.
I mean, I know she had other obviously issues going on, and was very good with sharing that information earlier this year. But ultimately, you know, being competitive is probably the most defining factor in most people's, you know, decision to retire or otherwise, Zach.
You know what we don't talk about enough, though, is just how hard it is to be a pro athlete when you've got a kid. Rafa mentioned, you know, kind of offhand in his interview, he hasn't won much since his son was born. And you know, I think a lot of that is father time more than being a parent, but like, it can't help, you know. you can't really be a pro athlete who is, you know, functioning at the highest levels, training on the schedule you want to, and be a present parent. And that's got to create a lot of either emotional conflict and challenges, or it's got to mean you don't have a normal sleep schedule. You know, you look at like a lot of athletes' sleep schedule, and waking up in the middle of the night to change a diaper ain't part of it.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I think we will continue to see that for as long as people are having kids, as long as there are sports, right? You know, and I know with Collins, that was a big factor in her decision whether to kind of continue on or not, was, you know, thinking about starting a family. And so, you know, we talk about these athletes prolonging their careers, and it's a great thing when they're able to do it, but it's got to be tough with family considerations across the board.
Yeah, I think about Collins, someone even mentioned in the comments, like over here, that she wanted to be a mom, and he's surprised that Matthew de Souza says that he's surprised that she changed her mind. She did mention in her Instagram post about you know, her desire of being a mom, and that she was just having struggles with this. So like, she wants to be sure of her possibilities. She has endometriosis, which is a condition that I do not understand. Like, I have never just really had the impulse to look it up, which is on me. But it's something that makes it more difficult for her to, you know,
conceive.
Conceive, yes. So I guess it just kind of fell into place that, you know, just she has the time. It's might not happen right now, so why not give it another go and just, you know, go for another 6 months, as you said.
I don't want to be crass. Also, she's made a lot less money than Rafa. She's made, you know, $9 million, which is like, hey, that's way more money than I've made, certainly.
Well, Zach, I've made a bit less than him too. I don't know about you.
Certainly so, right? But so, you know, look, money considerations. You know, has she made enough money that she's able to retire permanently? Maybe, maybe not. Tennis is an expensive sport for the athletes. They got to pay for their coaches. They got to pay for all this training, all this stuff. And I feel like we never or rarely talk about the money considerations that go into retirement. Look, another year, another Aussie Open run, that sets her up in a completely different realm. Like, let's say she makes the semifinals. You know, does that buy the beach house? You know, does that mean, say, fully retired? You know, does that start her next business? And so I think money might be a factor too.
Couple of things from the chat I'm going to respond to, and then I'll come to you, Rachel, on anything that we've been talking about, or even the match itself that's happening. Miles here talking about Darderi pushing Zverev at Rome. That's true, but of course, Darderi on clay is a very different prospect to Darderi on an indoor hard court. Rachel, have you got any thoughts to add either to Daniel Collins or even the match that's going on in front of us?
Adding on to Daniel Collins, I think her position as a potential mother definitely has something to do with it. However, I also think that the tennis tour specifically is very, very, very challenging on the body, on the mind, on her emotions. So, I mean, I don't remember if she was coming from like obviously she announced her retirement and then won the Miami Open. She was making some quarterfinals, semifinals, finals, but she wasn't winning much. So she probably maybe had enough.
One thing I will say about what you just said as well about the mind as well is she is just away from the tennis court, despite a lot of outgoingness to her. She could be a little bit reclusive. I remember seeing her in Strasbourg, and she said she was there by herself. Now she's only there for a few days, or maybe a bit longer by herself. I know she was going to be reuniting with her team in Paris because that was the French Open was coming up. But I do remember thinking that, okay, I mean, sometimes, I think she liked that as well, but that was her choice. But yeah, sometimes traveling the tour, whether you're a top 20 player or otherwise, can be a lonely experience too. And yeah, but there is also one other thing which I thought was kind of tennis related to her situation in the sort of January, February of last year, was that announcement of retirement came within, I'm going to say minutes, but certainly within 1 or 2 hours of her losing a really, really painful tennis match against Iga Swiatek in Australia last year. So it didn't seem as considered as the decision was sort of made out to be in the following months. It wasn't like a few weeks later where she sort of says, "Listen, this is my situation." It did feel like a little bit of an emotional reaction to what was she maybe was in a tough place, particularly after that loss. I think she was maybe a double breakup against Iga. I'm not sure, Andre, but she was certainly in a very advantageous position in that match. We're watching Dominic here, by the way, serving to stay in this first set, 15 all. There was another thing I was going to say about the Ash Barty and Bjorn Borg sort of comparison, because I think there is a thing, because I think both were of a similar age. I know Bjorn was 26 when he retired. I'm not sure Ash's exact age, but I'm going to say 25, 26. They were both multiple Grand Slam winners. They were both on their way to arguably, definitely both legends, I would argue anyway, but they were probably, putting themselves in the next sphere of GOATs, if you like, discussions, maybe slightly to less extent with Ash Barty. But both were equally surprising. There is a difference, though, and that is that I think Bjorn was not in a good place. He just didn't like playing tennis anymore. He didn't like a million things about the sport. The concept of picking up a racket horrified him, and was just so disenchanted with tennis that he just wanted to get away. Ash was in a much sort of, you know what, I just want to do some other things and chill.
What do you think it feels like to walk away from something that you're that good at? Like for most normal people, we are not gonna ever be that good at anything, period, let alone to walk away. It must be such a sweeping relief, but also really, really scary. We see for both of them, their lives up until that moment were dedicated to getting to that moment. And they were able to just say, you know what, enough's enough. I have so much respect for people that are able to walk away, but also I can't even begin to understand it.
Yeah. We have to remember as well that actually Borg played into the 90s is just far less talked about. Yeah. We like to pretend that the McEnroe match that he lost, I guess, in the Wimbledon was his last one, but it actually wasn't. I think he had a very, very bad losing record after that.
Didn't he come back with a wooden racket for a while?
He did, and that was his mistake number one. There's an actual, I think there's a channel on YouTube called Cold Tennis where he goes extensively about Borg's comeback on tour. But I think, yeah, it kind of partially expands a little bit on that one where Borg was not feeling good, walked away, decided that wanted to come back a little bit. But I would agree, I guess, walking away from something that he's really good at. If Borg hadn't come back from it, I think that, you know, you respect that as well. I'm really good at it, but I don't enjoy it, or I don't enjoy it anymore. I want to try something else, or like Barty, I'm really good at it. I enjoyed it, but now it's just time to turn the page. I guess it's different people have different motivations. So yeah, it's definitely respect a lot, especially those people who have like these extreme talents.
Rachel, as someone, I'm leaning on you a bit as well, who plays tennis quite a bit. Just tell us. I mentioned about Darderi and his performances, and I want this to be to an audience who maybe don't know the ins and outs of tennis as much as as some others do. Why is it that some tennis players, for example, can be very strong on clay, for example, and then look like they've never picked up a racket when they play on indoor hard?
I think there's different factors for different players. So, for example, Rafa, who's very, very good on clay.
He's not bad. Yeah, he does all right.
He obviously is Spanish, so they have a lot of clay courts in Spain. So trained on there, similar to Alcaraz, who's also very good on clay. But I'm not going to say he's not good on grass, because he's won Wimbledon a couple of times, but grass is definitely a weaker side.
What's your surface of choice, Rachel?
Hard.
Okay.
And that's purely because I play on hard. I've played on hard since I was little. I train on it, and if you chucked a clay court in front of me, I'd take about an hour to warm up to it.
Andre, do you play a bit of tennis?
Yeah, I used to play a lot more when I was young. Yeah. You got
a preference in terms of surface?
I was always a clay court player.
Yeah.
I am not, though. I'm like more of a.
In Canada, there are a lot of other clay.
I grew up in Brazil, so
I know.
South American clay. So
yeah.
So I like to go out for my forehand flat, and I had a backhand that I like to make it really spinny cross court. So.
Okay. Zach?
For me, my game is better suited to hard courts. I play fast, serve +1 style tennis. And I'm a heavier guy, and so the clay, longer points, they don't favor me. But I actually prefer playing on clay. I like the uncertainty of the bounce. I also, if we're being totally honest, I like there's a mark, because for our level of tennis, we're calling our own ball, and on hard courts, it can be if it's a close call, it's a little tight. It's nice to have that mark to refer back to. I will say in the States, where I played, it's all the hard true clay. And it's just not the same as the Euro or South American red clay. Part of it is aesthetics, but also it just doesn't, you don't slide as well. It's it's not as nice of a surface. And so I enjoy very much the Charleston Open. I kind of detest the surface. I wish they would get a red clay court made for that.
I just really like sliding. I think moving it on clay is like second nature.
If you nail it, can you nail it, Andre? That movement.
Sorry.
Are you good at sliding?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like sliding, and sometimes living in Canada now, I just kind of like run around in winter, just like slide on snow just to pretend.
Is there more of an indoor scene in Canada, or is the season just a pretty tight season?
Canada's tennis has grown as a recreational sport, first and foremost. So people play it on hard courts outdoors in the summer, and then they just leave it and play hockey in the winter. And they're trying very hard to build more indoor courts, to build more facilities like the bubbles and everything, to get people to actually take tennis seriously and put more people in the pipeline, more young kids in the pipeline, first and foremost. But yeah, it's for the growth of the sport, it wasn't very good. For grassroots, it's okay, because it's just like pretty much every court is packed in the summer.
So when I was in high school, I played on my high school team in Northern Virginia, and the season would start in March. So preseason would start in February. And I vividly remember having to shovel snow off the courts, get the leaf blower out to try and melt, whatever ice residue was there before we played. And I would imagine there's a bit of a culture of that in Canada, and it's just miserable if you have to shovel snow before you play tennis because the ball doesn't bounce, like you're cold, but also by the time you start playing, you're like sweaty from shoveling snow. But if you can't take your hoodie off because then your sweat will freeze on you and get little icicles. It's the worst.
Yeah, we don't even think about it in February. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
Just to have like a couple more snowstorms around.
Yeah.
So we don't even put the nets up.
I think that Ozon in the chat has been to North Carolina because he knows one of the nicknames for my state, North Kakalaki, which is very much a North Carolina thing.
Rachel, have you ever had to get rid of snow before playing?
Not snow, ice is the
Yeah.
I've played the coldest I've played in is -3, and the court was literally an ice rink, and there was 2 patches where it wasn't icy, which was like right at the baseline and right at the net. So
yeah, and you tried to live in those spaces without as much as you could.
Where are you based at, Rachel?
Where am I based? Southwest England.
I think I saw one of those Instagram or YouTube short posts where there were people playing on a very skatey ice rink kind of tennis court and sliding around and managing to hit reasonable shots. Rachel, are you okay to stay to the end of this set?
Yeah.
Cool. We obviously are coming to the end of this set one way or another, unless we have like a tiebreak that goes to like 22-20, which would be equally epic. By the way, I'm not plucking 22-20 out of nowhere. I'm just thinking about Blinkova Rybakina in Australia, which was it was an epic tiebreak as well, not just because of the scoreline, because there were some epic rallies, some moments of taking risks that I thought, oh, you're taking a risk here, face of match point. But yeah, that was a match to behold. Hopefully we get to see Rybakina before the season is out. And we are going to go into a tiebreak. Dominic Thiem. Oh, I'm just trying to think. Did Dominic Thiem go on a run of amazing tiebreaks 3 or 4 years ago? But maybe I'm misremembering that. But I certainly remember the 2 tiebreaks he had against Rafa in the ATP finals of 2020 that he won in just an incredibly high-level match.
So every prediction, John, that I've made on this channel has been wrong to date.
Yep.
And so I want to say with total certainty the team is going to win this tiebreak.
Okay.
Maybe this will be the one to break the streak. My prediction batting average is 0%. I'm so sorry.
I'm fearing that you put the kibosh on him.
But Dominic just got his first mini break, so
yeah,
on a double fault.
The Tchaikovsky bump right there. There we go. Speaking of Rybakina, it would be so great for her to return to form next season. The tour is just so much better with her playing at a high level. She just brings so much dynamism and it's so fun to watch. I'm really a fan of her and her style.
Yeah, I mean, peak Rybakina, particularly on 1 or 2 particular types of surface. Yeah, I mean, there's a discussion to be had as to whether, a peak Rybakina at Wimbledon, for sure, she's beating Iga. And possibly her and Arena. I mean, the problem with Arena is we didn't see her at Wimbledon this year, which for me was a huge loss to the tournament.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's obviously someone who's equally strong on that service. But yeah, definitely, just the more the merrier. The more the merrier. Daniel Collins, in the form of her life as she was between sort of March and June this year. Coco coming back to form and her obviously strengths and skill set and that she has. We've talked about a big 3 in men's tennis, and I think we're yearning to add a third party to. I mean, I know Novak is not going anywhere yet, but we're yearning for a third person to join the party of Sinner and Alcaraz. But women's tennis is a bit more because it depends on the surface so much. Whereas Yannick and Carlos are so adept across the 3 different surfaces, at least. Maybe indoor adds a different dimension, especially when it comes to cars. It's a lovely backhand winner down the line there from Dominic, by the way, to make it 3-love.
Yeah, he's playing a really good tiebreak right now.
Secretly double mortgage your parents' house, put it all on Thiem to win this tiebreaker. It's the lock of the century. It's happening.
Zach there playing with other people's money.
That's the only way to gamble.
Yeah.
I see Miles in the chat is less sold on Rybakina than the rest of us. I tend to agree though, John, that I think any high level player, they bring a lot. It might not be for everybody. Miles, it seems like it's not for you, but certainly
Miles and Zuzak as well. How good was that Australian Open final of 2023 with her and Sabalenka basically hitting 7 bells out of that tennis ball?
Yeah,
unknowingly so.
Exactly. I think anyone who's that talented, you just want to see them healthy on the tour. They bring something for somebody, and also, I think she means a lot to the region that she's from. So it's not just she's a global influence for good, and I very much enjoy watching her.
Maybe Miles isn't a fan because he's a fan of Sabalenka. I think I'm not going to go big on that one, but he certainly has Sabalenka leanings. And anyone who might potentially beat her is not bringing as much tennis as he'd like.
Sabalenka leanings would be a great name for a podcast.
It does have a great sounding to it.
Yeah.
It's a very musical name. It's kind of fun to say.
It's also quite funny because nobody in tennis really starts a podcast with leanings. It's either, Novak Weekly, I Love Iga, Sabalenka's the greatest of all time, Rafa's the king. Yeah. There's no half measures normally. There's no, she's all right.
The fan accounts on Twitter are a nightmare, and I enjoy Rafael Nadal very much. I enjoy his game, but the stan accounts for him are particularly egregious. Like a healthy Rafa has never lost a match in the history of tennis, according to those stan accounts, and it's so annoying.
I laugh.
Do y'all have a player that you stand? Is there one? Oh, by the way, Thiem 5-2. Just saying.
Oh yeah, 5-2. Wow. Let me just check this point out, and I'll answer you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was just a good serve. Well, I supported most of Novak Djokovic through my tennis fan life, but after a while, just kind of started respecting basically every player.
Yeah.
I don't really care about like this Twitter fan accounts. I think once I turn off my TV, I do my things and I don't worship anyone.
Yeah.
So it's all good. Like they live their lives and I live mine. Like it's fine. So, but yeah, I just liked Djokovic's personality in his early days, and I liked his game. Right now, of the younger generation, I think it's just because I'm older and I've been following tennis for a longer time, so now I'm just kind of like neutral towards everyone.
Yeah.
With
Sorry.
Go on, Rachel.
No, I was gonna say I wouldn't say I stan. I feel like that's very strong. But I mean, my favorite tennis player is Maria Sakkari, who's not having the greatest.
No.
I mean, past 4 or 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Remind me, she's the one who had the semifinal curse, yeah?
She sort of had a semi-final curse, yeah.
Yeah. And she's since broken that.
Well, she got to Indian Wells final, so she has got to a big, and she's also won a 1,000 in Guadalajara.
Yeah, she won Guadalajara. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Ooh, if we are talking podcast names, she's a stan of Stan. Stan's Wawrinka. The Tennis Stan podcast. Yeah.
There's going to be a short-lived one, or just talking about memories.
Oh, son of a gun. I know John stream's a little bit behind, but I don't know. No spoilers.
I've just turned on another stream on my phone, and it's a bit quicker, but it's still not quick enough.
Oh, no. Yeah. That's poor.
Oh, is it the volley from Dominic? Yeah.
He hasn't hit the best volleys in this match, unfortunately.
No.
It's kind of like this. Yeah.
2 big serve volley moments as well that have got away from him.
I think
it's been
one. We were talking team memories earlier, and one that will forever stick with me is he coincidentally, by happenstance, got pink eye in North Carolina at the Winston Open, and so he will forever be connected to my home state because he got ill at a tournament, an hour and a half away from where I live. That will not be my lasting memory of him, but I will also always remember that fun little fact or little tidbit.
Much better volley there from Dominic at the net brings up a set point, at least, albeit on the Darderi serve.
which Darderi managed to erase.
Yeah.
I'm just going to get another prediction wrong. Darderi's going to win because, you know, that's my curse or my gift.
You were looking good at 5-2. 5-2 Dominic. I mean, that's a hell of an advantage. Oh, that backhand return there from Dominic on set point.
Yeah.
Rachel, are you one-handed or two-handed backhand?
Two-handed.
Okay.
Are you one-handed, John?
No, two.
Two? I had a feeling you were one. You're a oneer.
Feelings can be wrong sometimes, aren't they?
Yes, so often they are.
I switched. I did have a one-handed for a little while, but
you switched. At what
Yeah.
age? Switch.
Yeah, I know what you're thinking, but my
Peer
tennis
pressure.
career kind of began at 40. I say began. I had the basics. I played as a teenager, didn't play for 20 years, picked up a racket again, and that was kind of when I. So it does sound strange to switch mid life or mid adult life or whatever, but no, it was at the point when I was like, okay, I'm back into the tennis scene now for a few months, playing it, and it's like, okay. A coach did sort of say, look, I mean, I don't know if it was an amazing coach, but it was just someone I had a few lessons with. And yeah, I switched to the two-hander. But if I've been playing tennis for 5 years, I would say 4.5 of those 5 I've had a double-handed backhand.
Yeah. I think, you know, going back to the surface question, a one-handed backhand on clay, especially if you're playing somebody with a kick serve. Oh, son of a... I can't.
He just couldn't have his feet, and you know, I wonder if a two-hander would have dealt with that a bit better.
I don't think. I think it's just the confidence. Like he just felt so down on himself for losing the advantage, and just that felt lazy. That felt like he just kind of he was conformed to the fact that he was going to lose this set, and he just kind of didn't really feel
Darderi, by the way, punching his fist towards his team was sort of like he's sitting down having just won Wimbledon or something. You know, like, yes, we execute our plan to win this tournament. Well done.
So that's another prediction.
Oh, yeah.
In the bag.
Rachel, by the way, do you want to give us a final thought before you head off? I know Andre's going to head off as well.
I think Thiem's going to bring it back in the second set.
Boom.
A strong prediction, but I think he's got it in him, maybe.
I like that prediction. I have no further predictions. I said I don't want to jinx him again.
Andre, do you share that optimism? Because I don't. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think Darderi started serving first, so I think it's gonna be a 6-4.
I mean, Dominic obviously was a break-up, but even more significantly, that 5-2 lead and a tie-break, and then yeah.
This generation of Italian players is incredible. You know, I mean, I don't know what's in the water in Italy, but they're punching pretty far above their weight in terms of, you know, top 100 players.
Yeah. Rachel, thank you very much for your debut today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
And I'm sure we'll be catching up again soon.
Yeah.
Take care. For those of you tuning in, by the way, do hit the like button. And of course, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Andre, do you want to have one more word on either this match, team, or anything before you slide off?
I don't know. Yeah, it's just, even though I did have a prediction of a 6-4, I do hope that this goes to 3 and Thiem finds a magical last win in Vienna, or maybe not last. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's about it.
All right. Thanks, Andre. Take care.
All right. See you guys. Have
Bye,
a good rest of the stream. Bye.
And then there were 2.
And there were 2. We were jam-packed with 4. As everyone was excited to see Dominic Thiem take the first set, and then he loses, and they go, "Okay, we're done."
Can we get a little wacky? Can we get a little weird here?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to bring up?
I want to bring the chat into the mix. I want the chat to ask whatever their most ridiculous, outrageous, tennis adjacent or related question is of you, and I'm happy to answer them too. But let's get a little weird.
Yeah, sure. Go give us as many questions as you want, as left field as you wish to go in the chat. By the way, it's a pity there isn't Nerlan here. Nerlan's a regular, and he doesn't need any encouragement for left field questions. And if you can get Cam Norrie into the question, that would be pretty left field as well.
Okay. Can I get us started with a question for you, John?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that tennis and your tennis skills would translate to sword fighting if you were alive during the medieval era? Yes or no?
No.
What?
No, because the mental side of it, the fear that this is sword fighting is kind of life and death. Is that a fair point?
Just like tennis.
Yeah. I mean, I have a fear with tennis as well. Not necessarily in terms of the ball hitting me in the face. Although once a soccer ball hit me in the face, I was in goal, and it was like a midwinter's day in the UK. So pretty chilly, pretty wet as well. And when the ball, all my teammates came up to me going, wow, what a great save. They hugged me, high fives. And I was just thinking, I wish the other team had scored.
So I see, Zach or John, have you ever hit a tweener lob winner before? I have attempted a tweener, and not well enough to be aiming for a lob. And I've hit something else that made me not attempt a tweener after that anymore.
Yeah, I can completely understand. And again, my fear of all sorts of things certainly lends itself to not even trying tweeners at all. I'm certainly, I mean, at the amateur level, you're not normally dealing with incredible topspin lobs and incredible levels of speed on those. So normally it's just a case of, am I going to be able to get this and lob it back in, if you like, or is it going to be beyond me? By the way, Dominic, Thiem here facing 2 great points already at the beginning of this first set.
So I played squash growing up, actually, and so the easier thing for me to do if I'm chasing down a lob is kind of do the heavy slice, kind of side spin, semi overhead, which is much more of a squash shot than a tennis shot. It's one of the reasons I would recommend to anybody who enjoys tennis, like, hey, it's great to cross train. Other racket sports work, soccer works, football, not American football, basically anything but American football actually is great cross training for tennis.
As Sean highlights, the front tweener is pretty much a piece of cake. You're not necessarily going to hit a winner off it, but the sort of Nick Kyrgios-esque front tweener is fine, and I've done a few of those. But there's a really good question here. It's not really left field, but I do like it anyway, from Miles, about what Grand Slam tournament did Thiem leave on the table, so to speak, like what specific year or edition? I've got a few thoughts in my mind, and then I'll come to you on this one, Zach. So for me, I don't think 2019 French Open was a sort of leave on the table, in spite of the fact I think that was possibly Thiem's best performing French Open. He pushed Rafa for an hour and a half, 2 hours, where at the end of the second set, if it was only two other tennis players on the planet, or any other one tennis player on the planet on the other side of the net, you might even have made Dominic Thiem favorite at that point, because that's how well he was playing. But Rafa is Rafa, and it's Roland Garros and Philippe Chatrier. So if there is one, it would be Australian Open 2020. Dominic was playing the best tennis of his life, in my opinion, certainly on a hard court, even probably better than he played in New York when he did win the Slam. And he probably should have beaten a slightly off-color Novak in the final when he was leading 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one for me. And I just looked it up to make sure I got the numbers right. Novak had lost his last 7 matches where he was down 2-1 in the 2020 Australian Open final. Thiem was in fantastic form. Novak had just played Federer for the last time, which we now know ever in competition. And I think that's the one that hurts.
Yeah. And it's quite an obvious one. There was other ones. I mean, 2018, he makes the French Open final, but he's a long way off Rafa in that final. I think the first set was tight, but once he lost that was done. Right. And again, it's Rafa in the French Open final. So
I just maintain, I think the one-hander on clay in the modern game, at the absolute highest level, I just don't think it's viable. Like, I don't think that he ever could have closed the gap with Rafa. I mean, basically nobody could ever close the gap with Rafa. Djokovic on the perfect day, maybe Federer, same deal, and those are really it. And maybe Alcaraz would come along a little sooner, same deal. But like, I just don't think he ever would be able to get there with the one-hander, because especially against Rafa's huge whippy forehand, as a lefty, like the matchup was just too tough.
Yep. There's a question about backwards hats in competition. I actually do wear a backwards hat quite often when playing tennis. Just to keep the hair out the way. I find it's more effective than some hairbands. I noticed, by the way, Rafa, by the way, he will wear a backwards hat in practice. It's almost like Rafa is going like, this is practice, and this is what I'm doing, and this is match play, and this is what I'm doing.
It's like a reverse Sylvester Stallone and Over the Top, one of the greatest arm wrestling movies ever made. If you're not familiar,
no, I'm not. Go on.
Oh, so in Over the Top, Sylvester Stallone, he's a truck driver trying to win back the affection of his estranged son. It's a great movie in the 80s. And he enters an arm wrestling competition to get the money and affection of his estranged son. And he wears a hat forward all the time. But here's the plot twist. In competition, he turns it backwards, and it's like flipping the switch. And then he's like the world's best arm wrestler. I think, by the way, I see what Ozan says about kind of who the best backwards hat wearing players are. I'm pretty darn bullish on Draper. I think Draper has the tools. He just hasn't had the health run to get there yet. If it's going to be anybody, that's who I got.
Of those winning a Grand Slam, yes, or doing big in their careers. But I do think in terms of fashion, I think it suits Baez best. Baez wears it best.
Seeing Baez in person is fantastic because he, a lot of the tennis players, they're kind of lanky. A lot of them are on the tall side, and then Baez is just like this ball of muscle and energy. It looks nothing like the other players. He's fun to watch too.
I saw him up very close this year in Rio, definitely. Maybe in Estoril as well, but certainly in Rio, I remember seeing him like right close. I was leaning against the hoardings for a couple of matches, kind of where the photographers often are. And seeing the movement of these guys and possibly none more so than Baez on clay was just incredible.
Yeah, I think we're in the chat.
Wunderlo, by the way, with a backward hat, he wears it well as well.
True. Something has come up in the chat. Baez is listed as 5'7". He's probably more like 5'5". I think it's hilarious that like players get to self-report their height and weight in this day and age. It's like, there's this great kind of, there's a moment years and years and years ago when Serena Williams was playing and she was listed, I think, as 5'9", 135. And McEnroe responded to it, in middle school? Because Serena's strong, and I think it just shows those numbers are just numbers. They don't actually mean anything. They don't tell you anything. I think Sabalenka is an inch or two taller than she says that she is. There's so many players that are fudging numbers.
I've spoken to a few, but I don't know what influence they do have on it because I've spoken to someone that say, no, that's wrong. And normally they'll tell me face to face. I think Lloyd Harris is one of them, definitely. And there's a few others on the Challenger Tour that I'll be on the website and I'll be sort of fact checking because I'll be like, by the way, it says here your favorite food is lasagna. Is that true? And they're like, yep, it is. Okay, fine. By the way, here it says you're 1 meter 85. And they normally say, well, actually, I'm 1 meter 87.
Oh.
That's what they say. Now, I'm not, that's, by the way, I'm talking about 2 or 3 players, but each of those have said I'm a couple of centimeters taller than what it says there.
I think any player who is listed at 5'9" is lying, straight up. I think any guy who's listed at 5'9" anywhere is lying. And I know that because I'm 5'9". And that's.
But you're listing that, Zach. You're self-proclaiming yourself.
Oh yeah, maybe 5'10" on a good day. It's been a while since I've gotten measured. Anything could have happened.
Anyway, do let us know about backward hats and also backhands as well, and anything else you want to ask us. Dave here, by the way, is clinging on to the potential Thiem comeback because, of course, right now, of course, it would be a set and a breakdown. For me, I haven't sort of touched on this too much, but the 3 or 4 months of basically, we didn't necessarily know it at the time, but the 3 or 4 months of Thiem being elite, Grand Slam winning, ATP final, competing with the big three to just actually, as it turns out, falling off a cliff was the winter of 2020 and into 2021. So from the ATP final, which was the penultimate final, as it turned out, of Dominic Thiem's career, which we would never have predicted at that time. Yeah. He's just won. He's been in 2 Grand Slam finals that year. He's just won the US Open. The career is just about to take off into another stratosphere. He reaches the ATP Tour finals, beating Novak and Rafa in incredible matches en route. the fact that he doesn't win that doesn't really make much difference. And we're just looking forward to seeing him being a potential winner at the Australian Open and for many more Grand Slams to come. And then at that Australian Open, he had 2 really tough 5-setters, I think. The first one was against Kyrgios, which he won. And then I think he ended up losing to someone that you wouldn't have expected him to. So I'm just going to check now to see who. Oh, no, he knows straight sets to Dominic, to Grigor Dimitrov, winning just 8 games.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of Kyrgios for a second, by the way,
sure.
He says he will be playing in Australia this year. Are we rooting for him? Do we think he's playing? Are we ready for him to retire? Or like, what's your take on Nick?
First of all, having someone as talented and we were talking about misses and you know, losses of or not exploiting the talents that are obviously at their disposal, and thinking, wow, they may have some regrets. Well, Nick would certainly fall into that category.
No kidding.
If he wasn't to pick up another tennis racket again. I mean, the talent is there. The fact that he wasn't the one there to pick up the pieces when a Rafa or a Novak was off it, or a Roger to some extent in the last 5 years is almost criminal. Because, yeah, I mean, also even the Wimbledon final he had against Djokovic, I think he accepted defeat a little bit too easily that day, because I think Novak was there for the taking. He was up a set. There was at least one tie break. I know the one that decided the match, and I got the impression that he just was getting frustrated with getting into rallies with Novak, knowing he wouldn't win them without pulling off something spectacular. And there was a few times he pulled the trigger a bit too early. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you know, if Nick wants to come back and play in Australia, am I a huge fan of? I'm a case by case person anyway, with anyone's personality. I mean, at the end of the day, some of the worst people in history may have been a vegetarian. And does that make me think that vegetarianism is a bad idea? Not necessarily. Does it make you a bad dude? No. You know, there's also some of the worst people in history have been dog lovers as well. So
yeah.
So, you know,
there's one in particular that was both of those things. That's
well, of course, I've got that one in mind.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the one, you know. Others have had, a lot of them have had moustaches as well. And does that make me think, as soon as I see someone with a moustache, do I start to, you know, cross the other side of the street because I think something might be up? No.
Yeah, a lot of them hosted the 1936 Olympics. Like, yeah, there's all these randomly things that you could say. Yeah.
Yeah, right. If you're not sure about sports washing, by the way, maybe that's a good starting point. But yeah. So, and regarding Nick anyway, Nick Kyrgios, that is, yeah, do I think that, you know, some of the stuff I used to actually, wonderful backhand down the line there from Dominic Thiem. I used to enjoy Nick more, as in, you know, the asking where to serve stuff. It's a lot of fun. A lot of the antics on court was all about entertainment for both him and the audience. You know, wonderful. The high-fiving everyone as he runs around the stadium. You know, did I think his treatment of umpires, this is sort of 2017, 2018, 2019. Did I think his, you know, treatment of umpires was a bit over the top at times? Absolutely. Could I move on from that pretty quickly? I could also move on from it quickly. By 2022 Wimbledon, and I came across him in press conferences there, and I didn't enjoy, you know, some of the stuff that went on there with him basically just shouting at old people who were line judges and then coming into the press conference afterwards saying that he shouldn't be a line judge. And the abuse that they get is nothing compared to the abuse that I get on social media. And it's more important for me because I'm earning $500,000 here than it is for them who are on a significantly lower salary, of course. None of that made any sense to me, and I didn't enjoy it. Does that mean that I'm not willing to enjoy Nick Kyrgios in another moment on a tennis court? No, I can still enjoy him. Will I be rooting for him? It depends. I guess it depends on who he's playing. I mean, for example, that run that him and Kokkinakis had to the final of Australian Open of 2022, I thought was largely fun. You know, if that Kyrgios turns up, then sure.
You know, I was a Kyrgios, somewhere between a fan and an apologist for years and years and years, because I have a soft spot for the head cases. Murat Safin was one of my favorite players growing up, if that gives you any idea, because they're not just playing tennis, they're in a fight with themselves. And I find it humanizing and kind of endearing, even when that leads to antics and bad behavior. I think the thing that changed with Kyrgios for me is I saw a couple of interviews with him where he seemed to take pride in how little he was trying, and how little he trained, and how he wasn't putting forth effort. And I recognize that's a defense mechanism, right? He's scared. You know, he's afraid of not being talented, of what if he tries his hardest and he doesn't win. I get where that's coming from, but that was sort of the moment for me. It was like, you know what, I can't root for this guy. I can't root for somebody that takes pride or presents that they are proud of how little effort they're putting forth, because I think it just makes me sad. It's, hey, if he doesn't want to play tennis, that's his right. I respect it. Absolutely. I get it. But that sort of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, cutesy, oh, I'm here, but I'm not really trying. It just doesn't do it for me. And so I agree with you. If he has a good run and he's playing good tennis, yeah, I'm going to watch and I'm going to do my best to enjoy it as a fan. But I kind of reached my wit's end with him when I saw some of those interviews about that.
By the way, Darderi is nowhere near the level of notoriety of Nick Kyrgios, but seeing him there complain to the umpire did make me think about, as I say, the one encounter I had with Luca earlier this year, sorry, and also just some of the Kyrgios things. Where do you stand, by the way, on the Kyrgios comments on Jannik Sinner? If you're not familiar with what he's been saying, I can fill you in.
Yeah, no. So I think for starters, I get where Kyrgios is coming from. I think let's acknowledge the obvious. There are different sets of rules. Jannik Sinner is more important to tennis than all but 4 other active players tops. And so, yeah, like there's a different set of rules that apply to him. Look at Agassi and what he wrote about in his book Open, right? How he failed a drug test. They found an excuse. They got him over it. And I think that I understand where Kyrgios is coming from. I understand his frustration. And I think that there is truth to what he's saying. If that happened to anybody else, it would be handled. It very well could and would be handled differently. But at the same time, is tennis better off without Jannik Sinner for 2 years entering his prime? Are fans better off? Is the sport better off? Are the tournaments better off? Are the governing bodies better off? There are all these interested parties that they're better off with him in the game. And so, of course, they're going to try and find a way to keep him in. Now, if he fails a second drug test and the same song and dance happens again, then tennis becomes a farce. But look, when you're that good and that young, and also when you look that much like you're not on steroids, and I know that there's different types of performance-enhancing drugs, but like you look at that guy and you don't think, well, that's a guy taking drugs he can't take. You look at him and it's like, that's a string bean. I think extraordinary. Lance Armstrong once said, extraordinary allegations require extraordinary proof. And I don't think that it's there yet. And so I sympathize with Kyrgios saying
with love,
to it.
There was extraordinary proof as it turned
Eventually.
out.
Took him a long time. I think that there's truth to what he's saying. I also don't think that it's good for the game for Sinner to get penalized over this. I think maybe he misses a couple months. I hope he doesn't. If he gets caught a second time, I hope they throw the friggin' book at him, though.
Dominic Thiem has been broken again. One of the points, in fact, 2 of the last 2 points from Love 32 end up getting broken were both backhand down the line fails from Dominic, bless his heart. And so we are now at possibly just 2 or 3 games and possibly 10 to 15 minutes away from Dominic Thiem's professional career coming to an end. Regarding that, by the way, and Thiem's career coming to an end, it has been and so I don't know, maybe the same with Rafa. I'm not as emotional about, at least not now. Maybe it'll change come Malaga, but I've not been anywhere near as emotional about Rafa's departure from the sport as I thought I would be. Also with Thiem as well, both have been kind of slow burners.
Yeah.
With Rafa, it's been 2.5 years of barely seeing him on a court, and whenever we did, it pretty much ended with him, coming off the court in some pain or the other. With Dominic, it's been a 3-year, 4-year almost slow burner in terms of seeing the results tail off.
Yeah.
And just, even comments from him, about, I remember as I played at the beginning of the show, he told me earlier this year, Dominic, that I said, what's the difference between Dominic 2021, 2020 compared to now? And he said, that's a different galaxy. That's just a different galaxy. That was kind of the beginning of basically he did drop a few fairly strong hints, and they were all noted by the media that we think the game is up for Dominic. And within probably 1 or 2 months, he did basically come out and publicly announce his retirement. So
yeah,
it has been a sort of a slow farewell for both of those 2 players in very different reasons. But as a result, the impact isn't quite as, it's still huge. It's still, when Rafa announced that, you saw social media going crazy, and there'll be loads of episodes, and there have been episodes and podcasts and clips and memories, but it's still a bit less like, you're sort of like just can't believe what's happened. Well, whereas with those two, it's been like a case of when, not if.
You know, I feel like with Thiem, I think more about the end of an era than the end of Thiem's career. You know, it's part of it's Rafa, it's Thiem. You know, Federer's already retired. You know, how much longer is Dimitrov with us? How much longer is Djokovic with us? You know, this generation of players have been so ever present, and I know the Thiem is kind of on the tail end of it, but it feels like the torch. It's not just that it's being passed; it feels like it's already been passed to Sinner and Alcaraz, and these guys are still here. And so every match, to me, it just feels like it's gravy at this point. You know, there's no expectations on them. Same for Monfils, same for Wawrinka. You know, Murray was the same way. The next generation was passed over with Tsitsipas, Zverev, and, you know, to some extent Medvedev. And the next generation has grabbed the mantle. Yeah, absolutely. Del Potro, gosh, there's a guy who was fun to watch. Mighty fun to watch, and same deal. But, you know, I think we are in good hands as tennis fans, especially ATP fans, with Sinner, with Alcaraz. You know, Sinner, if the drug testing bothers you, I'm sorry. It's a shame. Just watch tennis. He plays great tennis, you know. And then on the WTA, same deal. Like Iga, hopefully Rybakina when she gets back, Arena. Like there are so many great players and personalities in tennis right now. It doesn't feel like we're entering the wilderness. You know, when there was a moment when Sampras and Agassi's careers were coming to a close before Federer really asserted himself. It was like, well, what's tennis going to look like here? It's brutal.
Yeah. I will say, at least on the women's side, since Serena's departure, it doesn't feel like I mean, of course, we had Angie Kerber retire this year and a few others, but it doesn't feel like, you know, the people at the top of the sport, as in Rafa, Roger, and Novak were for so long. It doesn't feel like, you know, it's not like we're going to lose Iga anytime soon, or Arena for sure, or Coco, or, you know, the people at the top of the women's game, they're here for 5, 10, maybe more years to come for sure.
I am throwing a little bit of shade on Hewitt in particular. And like, look, I love Andy Roddick, you know, best American in the last couple decades. But yeah, like, what was Hewitt's weapon? His weapon was his speed. And like, that's not getting it done anymore. Everybody's got that kind of speed at the top of the game.
I will, Jamie, hone in on potentially Dominic Thiem's last game, but it doesn't look like it's happening right now because he's 40 love up on his serve. Well, regarding Hewitt, listen, Hewitt is somebody who was obviously he won 1 Grand Slam, I believe. Wimbledon, definitely. Maybe I should check this out actually to see if he won a slam away from Wimbledon. But I remember him winning that Wimbledon in 2002, I think it was, from the back of the court. And if you want to talk about groundbreaking moments, and we all think that maybe Federer did so, but actually it was Leighton Hewitt who did it first in 2002, which was just an incredible achievement. Looks like he won 2 Grand Slams. What am I missing, Leighton? I do.
U.S. Open 2001, Wimbledon 2002. I actually was at that Wimbledon, and I saw the match where I think Andy Roddick lost. I believe it was Greg Ruzetsky. If we'll throw back there.
Yep, U.S. Open. You're right. So he won 2 slams out of in less than a year. And in terms of winning slams, probably none of us. I remember pretty much thinking the following year at Wimbledon 2003, thinking, well, I think he might well do it again. But that was a typical sort of British, I'm not watching tennis for a year, and then Wimbledon rocks up. And I was at the match in 2003, Leighton Hewitt against Ivo Karlovic. And Ivo Karlovic was an unknown, very, very tall, big server. Unknown, again, is probably also a guy that, you know, is going to Wimbledon once a year. But anyway, that was my first Wimbledon actually in tennis. And what a legendary day it was, because Leighton Hewitt became the first person to have won Wimbledon to go out in the first round the following year in about, I don't know, 30 or 40 years. So, yeah, it was a huge shock. And I think Hewitt won the first set as well. And it was like, yep, okay, this is going the way we thought. But yeah.
Hewitt's legacy might very well be his son. His son, Cruz, can play and is an up-and-comer to watch these next few years.
I've seen him practicing at the Nadal Academy.
Oh, geez. Here we go. Sorry to jump in. We're 2 points away, potentially.
Yeah. So me going 40 love Dominic Thiem, we should be okay for another game or so. It's not working out so well because it's now back to deuce.
If I say that Darderi is going to close out here, then Thiem might come back and win the whole thing. So I'm going to say Darderi is going to win it right now.
Yep, there we go. Our team should have won this point from here, but that net cord didn't help him at all. Yeah, Leighton Hewitt, Roger Federer, that was a mauling. I think Roger Federer spoke about maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, sometime just after his retirement anyway. Federer said that he thinks that was possibly the best he ever played, you know, from
Wow.
start to finish. There was a bagel in that final as well. Yeah.
You know, I host a recreational tennis podcast, and it's silly. It's
Yeah.
an audience for nobody. It's just me and my buds. But one that I've wanted to do for a while, and you know, maybe somebody in the chat will take up for me instead, is I'd love to see, you know, an hour-long episode on all these guys and all these players that won between, you know, that went to one final to between two majors won. There are so many amazing careers, amazing stories from all over the world, ATP, WTA, and we don't talk about them enough. Oh yeah, this is us. That's right.
That's your YouTube page at least, and it looks like I'm not a subscriber. I thought I was. There we go. Click subscribe.
You are lucky number 69, John.
There you go. There we go.
Very nice. Yep.
Maybe I subscribe from a different, maybe from my own personal account, but this is the Talking Tennis account now. You've got subscribed, but of course you're also on Spotify as well, right? And all the other
yes,
podcasts.
indeed. You know, and look, if you're sitting at home wondering, hey, what's happening in the Durham, North Carolina tennis scene? This is the podcast for you. But there also is a lot of talk about, you know, our experiences as a rec player, you know, dealing with injuries, what kind of gear we're using, how we're approaching, you know, these recreational matches, or you know, in the US, the USTA matches. Here we go. The jinx works again.
The comeback is on.
Oh, fantastic.
Just quickly during the break, and then I want the last few points. I will hone in on them, but just now we've got the sit down break between. It is a much you know, commented thing about, you know, best players to never win a slam. Certainly this century anyway. We talk about David Ferrer. Certainly, I mean, Stefanos Tsitsipas now comes into that conversation. Alexander Zverev as well from the current crop. The thing with David Ferrer, though, is that I think that everyone just thought he still kind of got the maximum out of his ability. You know, the fact that he didn't win a Grand Slam is not, even though he had a very successful career and doesn't end up winning one.
Yeah. You know, I look at a guy like a Nikolai Davydenko, right?
Oh, yeah.
Who remains 43rd. I'm on his Wikipedia page, 43rd in the all-time career earnings, who won a tour finals, who went to 4 Australian Open quarterfinals, 2 French Open semifinals, 2 US Open semifinals, you know, all these things. And yeah, like, you know, that guy's got an amazing story. He was this close. He is so much closer to Federer than, you know, you or I are to the number 1,000 player in the world, and he just never quite got there. And I find that David Nalbandian, that's a throwback as well.
Nalbandian,
yeah. I mean, I find their careers fascinating, and I think as tennis fans we can learn a lot of, you know, about them, and, you know, a lot about the world and culture, and, you know, different ways of playing and styles and all these things. So I hope somebody will take that idea and run with it if they like it. Here we go.
This is a good head-to-head for Davydenko and Nadal. I'm showing it on the screen.
Come on. Get out of here. Would not have guessed. Wow.
Yeah.
Is he the Nikolai Davydenko, the Nadal killer?
Yeah. Yeah. I saw that recently. I knew he'd won a few matches against him. I didn't know he had a winning head-to-head, but yeah, that came up in a podcast recently. So
if you saw Rafael Nadal, not know as a non-tennis fan, not knowing who he was, you might very well think that guy could be a pro athlete. If you walked by Nikolai Davydenko on the street as a tennis fan, you probably wouldn't notice.
Anyway, first point of the game goes the way of Darderi with a lovely little volley at the net there. So we might be 3 points away now. In fact, we're getting a bit closer and closer. An hour and a half on the clock.
Oh, here we are. What a career. You know, just again, want to just laud Thiem for continuing to grind, continuing to play, continuing to chase that dream, even after his body started to betray him. And I have so much respect for him as a person, as much off the court as on the court.
He still looks quite annoyed. You know, you think that he'd be...
Well, you know, just because the body's not there, like the mind is. You know, he's got the mind of a major winning, and he will always have that. You know, and I'm sure he's still pissed.
Yeah, I mean, he pissed because he didn't win that first set tiebreak that he should have won, and then we have a match on our hands.
Yeah.
Nice to see plenty of people clapping.
Yeah. Oh, Songa, by the way, got to give a little bit of love to him in the chat. As somebody who, yeah. Monfils as well.
Volley, by the way, just want to mention that Darderi has sealed the match with a serve volley smash at the net. Are we going to get we're going to get a smile from Dominic at some point. Yeah, it comes now as he acknowledges his opponent at the net.
Yeah.
Served it out to Love. I'm sure we're going to get a few words from Dominic on the court. At the moment, they're still sharing words at the net.
What a moment. What a career. What a career. He left it all out there.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to with Rafa, there's immense sadness. With Andy Kerber, there's sadness. With Andy Murray and all the rest of it. But it's like, there's not too many what ifs, if you like, with those players and many, many others. I think the only thing with Dominic is like, it just sort of caught us all off guard, including Dominic himself. You mentioned there just now, the mind is still there, but the body wasn't doing what the mind was telling it to do.
Yeah. He left it all out there, you know? I mean, what else is there to say? It's sad. He's going to be missed. You know, I hope he's somebody that I really hope stays around the game. I hope he has a second career as a coach. I hope, you know, maybe, yeah, I am. Like, I'm sad. I'm a two-handed backhand guy to the core. I think the one-handed backhand is not built for the modern game. And I still hope that he teaches people how to hit it, because his one-hander is one of the most beautiful shots in tennis.
Yeah.
Good for a hot take. Better than Federer's.
Ooh. I mean, Federer certainly could get bullied on that side a bit. Where the one, listen, maybe we'll be here in 20 years and there'll be a renaissance and there'll be, you know, half a dozen in the top 10. But yeah, we're in a particular situation now since Federer's retirement.
Yeah.
And with the odd flickering of light from Dimitrov and then the demise of Dominic let's not even get to Denis Shapovalov. Yeah, the one-handed backhand right now is in a sort of a sorry place, but who knows whether it will be here. It just feels as though with all of those players, less so Dominic and Roger, but with Stefanos, for example, it's like go to the back, you know, go to the backhand, and you'll probably win the tennis match. Anyway, we are going to have a few words. Let's see if we're going to hear. Oh no, because he's probably going to speak in German, so we'll probably let that go. Listen, Zach, big thanks for joining us today. Make sure you check out Zach's Triangle Tennis podcast, both on as a podcast audio via Spotify and iTunes, I guess, and all the other places where you get your podcasts from. Also check out his YouTube channel as well. So do that. But yeah, Zach, big thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. And I would be remiss if I didn't say mash subscribe. TTP, you could probably skip if you listened. Great. But this is a great channel. It's always such a pleasure to be on Talking Tennis. You know, John does such a great job coordinating this and bringing all these different voices from the tennis community on. Give him a follow. Give him a like if you haven't already. And if you already have, hey, text it to a buddy. There's plenty of other people that enjoy listening to this too. John, appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Zach, and thanks for the shout out. And I'm going to give a shout out for your podcast, even if you're being very modest about it. So do check out the Triangle Tennis podcast, wherever you get your podcast or YouTube channel from, which, of course, wherever you get your YouTube channel from, let me tell you this, it's YouTube. You're not getting your YouTube channel from anywhere else. So I'm fumbling over my words, so I think it is time to say goodbye. Thanks very much once again, Zach, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Bye, everybody.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.